Healthcare has proven to be a struggle for this president. The proof is in the lack of progress and the changes in his own position. Let's start with his tweet late Monday night after Senate Republicans failed to pass their bill. Quote, Republicans should just repeal failing Obamacare now and work on a new health care plan that will start from a clean slate. Dems will join in. Then on Tuesday, he backed away from a repeal, saying this.
But we'll just let Obamacare fail. We're not going to own it. I'm not going to own it. I can tell you the Republicans are not going to own it.
Okay, then listen to what he told senators at a lunch yesterday afternoon.
We have no choice. We have to repeal and replace Obamacare. We can repeal it, but the best is repeal and replace, and let's get going. I intend to keep my promise, and I know you will too.
All right, all of these different moving positions while Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell moves forward to repeal Obamacare without a replacement. So what is happening here? Let's bring back our panel. We have Maggie Haberman, David Chalian, and John Avlon. John, before we get to the president's ever-changing positions, at this luncheon, it was very interesting, the optics, as well as what was said, because Dean Heller of Nevada was seated directly next to the president. Dean Heller was not a fan of the most recent GOP bills, I think it's safe to say, and the president took the opportunity to issue a warning, somewhat coded, to Dean Heller. Let's listen to this.
You didn't go out there. This was the one we were worried about. You weren't there, but you're going to be. You're going to be there. Look, he wants to remain a senator, doesn't he? Okay. And I think the people of your state, which I know very well, I think they're going to appreciate what you hopefully will do.
I mean, let's just be real clear about what happened there. It's a nice Senate seat you got there. It'd be a shame if anything happened to it. I mean, that's an outright threat under the guise of joking. And it's a classic bullying technique.
But when you say it's a threat, you mean that the president could do something, or a PAC that supports the president?
Well, a PAC that supports the president has already gone after him. And yeah, and of course that's what it refers to.
There's no reason to be naive about it, though.
No.
That's of course what he means. And this is not new. David Chalian, this happens all the time, but no, in general. If you do not do what the executive wants you to do, you've got trouble in politics. I don't think the president can be blamed for strong-arming his own people. What is more noticeable at this stage is that he's separating himself from his own people. He's starting to talk about the Republicans like they were a separate group from him.
Well, that's why the soundbite you played from him of saying, I'm going to keep my promise and you better keep yours. Earlier in the day, he tweeted about the Republicans that they better keep their promise, not we collectively as a party. And you're right. Presidents have always tried to strong arm their own party members to their will, to their legislative will, and using political carrots and sticks to do so. Here's the problem. President Trump lost Nevada last time I checked in the race against Hillary Clinton. He's at 36% nationally. So this gets back. He wants to be feared here, but it's unclear that Dean Heller really will feel such fear. The last time we heard from Dean Heller on this as to where he really stood, he was standing with his governor and siding with his governor, which was in opposition to the bill at that stage of the game. We'll see as Mitch McConnell develops the plan for what will be voted on, if anything, next week, and where Heller stands. But it is not at all clear to me yet that Dean Heller really feels the full fear that it seems like Donald Trump would like him to feel.
Maggie, the CBO score is not good news, certainly for Mitch McConnell, who is planning to have this vote this upcoming week on just repeal. They determined that 32 million, there would be 32 million more uninsured people if there was just to be a repeal. Did you talk to the president about all of this in your interview?
We did, and you know, he, as you correctly said, he has taken a few different positions, certainly the last few days, and I think overall about whether he favored just a repeal or a repeal and replace. What he said to us was that he had initially been in favor of a repeal, but that you know, he basically then decided that they ought to go together. My read on that, my interpretation of it, was at another point I asked him, you know, am I correct in thinking that you fundamentally believe that, you know, people should have access to insurance? And he said yes. Remember, you're not talking about somebody who was raised in a conservative area. He was raised in New York City, and I think he has a pretty specific view of the government's role in people's lives on issues like healthcare. And he was pretty, I think, again, I'm interpreting here, but I think that he was saying he didn't want there to be a period where people lost their insurance. That's a really important difference between him and some people in the Republican GOP caucus. And on another point, I just want to go back to something you were saying before about him threatening Dean Heller. I agree that I don't think that the threat to Heller is specifically going to work, especially because it's been made several times and kind of pulled back in the form of those TV ads from the super PAC or outside group that supports the White House. But I do think that they believe they need to send a message to people in states where Trump's base is pretty strong, where the voters who have voted for Trump are going to have a real impact in these Senate contests. Yeah. And I think that they are thinking beyond just Dean Heller.
But you got where his head is in that interview with Maggie. He spent most of his time in what was released talking about health care in terms of how long it had taken Obama to get it done and how long Hillary had tried. I mean, he's thinking about it in terms of the optics.
And now he knows that everybody knew that healthcare was so complicated if they'd paid attention to it in the past. That's great in terms of a learning curve, but let's also focus on the fact that he took 4 positions on healthcare reform in 48 hours. And to what Maggie just said, that he really is focused on making sure that people aren't without coverage, that may be where his heart and his instincts are, but that's not necessarily where the policies he's proposing are. That level of chaos in presidential messaging at a crucial moment about a fundamental policy is also not remotely normal.
Right.
Well, it also shows no clear strategy, right? I mean, it shows not at all a clear strategy from the White House about how to get this bill over the finish line. If you're all over the map like that publicly within 48 hours, you haven't sort of been the North Star and have the party follow you and here's where we're going. That to me seems the biggest problem with all the differences coming out of his mouth.
All right, panel.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.